Spearhead. Are you bored of it yet? Is it even out yet? It's the new way to play Age of Sigmar, going to be released with Age of Sigmar 4.0 whenever that comes. Should be coming soon, I guess. If you're watching this in the future and it's already out and you've been playing Spearhead for a while. But when you are done with that game style and you do not want to get into Age of Sigmar proper because it involves you buying hundreds of pounds more miniatures, it involves you painting and modeling and doing everything that you need to do with the massive amount of models that you will be able to get, what are you going to do with your models? Are you just going to keep on playing that format with the one box that you have? Or is there another alternative? Yes, there is. That alternative is to come over and play Warcry with those miniatures. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about taking the models from those spearheads, turning them into Warcry warbands. We've got a whole bunch of list building going on. I've got lists for every single current spearhead that there is in the game. And yeah, we're going to have a good time about it. But before we get into that, I've noticed that still 58% of you guys are unsubscribed. What are you waiting for? Come and join me here on the channel, give me a little bit more support, and yeah, I'll be making more videos like this going forward. If you do want to give me some more support, you can join me here on YouTube as a member. You can join me over on Patreon. You can join me over on Streamlabs. Either way, you will get to see content before it is released. You'll get to see exclusive behind the scenes stuff, and you'll get to have a say into the kind of stuff that I am producing in the future. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into Spearhead. Let's get into list building. Let's go. Before we begin, rules. A great many of you will be watching this video who will already be playing Warcry and who will know all about list building and that kind of thing. But for any of you that's new here specifically, this is what I'm going to follow. Okay, so we're only going to use what's in the box. The idea is you've been playing Spearhead already. You only have what's in the box and we're going to be list building from that stuff. There's also going to be no counts as models. We're just going to be taking the models as they come. Alternative builds are allowed. Depending on the Spearhead rules themselves, you may be able to build, for example, the Seraphon Lord on Carnosaur, or you might be able to build it as the Skink Priest on Troglodyte. So if you don't have those models, if you built it one way, I'm going to be offering you lists for the other way you can build it, or if you have any parts left over, you'll be able to build those other models. Those models are going to be allowed in this. We are going to be as close to 1,000 points as possible. Sometimes the points just don't add up when we're doing things. We might end up at 920 points, we might end up at 950 points, but these will be lists that I would be looking to bring if I just had those models available to me. On top of that, we're going to be taking base Warcry rules, so we're not going to be looking at allies unless there are stuff in the box that allows you to take those allies. We're not going to be looking at thralls for the same reason, and we are not going to be looking at divine blessings. Okay, so we are going to start with Stormcast Eternals. There are going to be two spearheads for these guys. One is going to be this box that you can see here, and the other one is going to be the stuff coming in the Age of Sigmar 4 starter set box. Of course, there's going to be some stuff that we cannot take in Warcry, so the Chariot and Yndrasta, for example, despite being real fancy. So we're not going to be focusing on them, but what you do get is you get the very good Annihilators. As part of that box, you get the Annihilator Prime as well, so we're going to be using him as our main damage dealing hero. Very good stats here. 4-5-3-5 damage profile means he's going to be hitting with a lot of attacks. He's going to be hitting easily because he's got strength 5, and he's got 3-5 damage profile, so he's going to be doing damage when he hits. He's also got toughness 7, which is one of the highest in the game, which allows him to stick around for a long time, along with those 25 wounds. So we've got our Annihilator Prime. We're going to be taking him with a Vanquisher Prime because you get Annihilators and Vanquishers in the box. As another hero, we get to add a few more points there. We're only going to be running 6-man because the points kind of don't add up in the best way for us, but all of those extra points that we get, we can put back into our fighters to upgrade them, so Vanquisher Prime in this case. And then we're going to take our two Annihilators with Meteor Hammers, very similar to the Prime with Meteor Hammer. They're going to hit hard, they're going to do a lot of damage. And then on top of that, you can either take a pair of Night Vanquishers, which you do get in the box, or you can take your Vexillor with Banner of Apotheosis. The Vexillor's stats aren't as good as your Vanquishers. He does not hit as hard in combat, but he's got that Banner ability, which might be interesting to you. You can take either. It doesn't really matter in this case, but sometimes it's nice to have a third hero in there with a few more wounds and a little bit tougher so that your list is not as squishy as it would otherwise be. The second spearhead we have available to us is the Vigilant Brotherhood. This is what's going to be in the box. This is what we're going to start with. It's basically Prosecutors and Liberators. The leader that I've chosen for this is the Prosecutor Prime. A little bit in how I've decided to go about building these kinds of warbands. I've tried to have at least 1 or 2 mobile threats in there so that they can go out and they can reach things from across the battlefield instead of just foot slogging across the board. Yes, that means that I could have used those points elsewhere to get more models in, but I think in Warcry nowadays, you kind of want that slightly faster piece. And the Prosecutor Prime is what we got. That's what's in the box. So we're going to be taking the Prime with Javelin and Shield. We're going to take another Prosecutor with Stormcall Javelin and Shield again, 215 points. This allows you to put 1 fast mobile piece in each of your 2 of your 3 deployment groups. They can go out, they can go across the board, they can go touch things. And then we just have a bunch of Liberators. So we'll just run those Liberators, Warhammer and Sigmarite Shield, very straightforward. 20 wounds, toughness 6, they'll do the work for you. Next up, we are looking at Cities of Sigmar. You can't take the cannon, unfortunately, which is kind of sad. But what you can do is you can take the Horse Lord that you get. A 4/5/2/5 damage profile is pretty good. I think he's got some nice abilities in there. We're going to take our Battle Priest because he comes with your Steel Helms. And then we're going to take a couple of Cavaliers, again, for very much the same reason why I think we should be taking the Prosecutors. Like, you could just go all Steel Helms and rely on your reaction to do damage back to your opponent when they hit you, but I still like those fast-moving pieces to go out and to reach things. I think it's a bit more of an interesting game, personally, and especially when you're just starting out Warcry, I like having a warband that is able to do a whole bunch of things so that you get a flavor for what the warband does and for the different kinds of playstyles that you want to see. So we're going to have those 2 Free-Guild Cavaliers in there. They're fine. They're 165 points, they're not super expensive, but they can run across the board and they can do some stuff. And then we have a whole bunch of Steel Helms. They'll be your rank and file. They are pretty cheap for what they do. I was talking about their reaction. They do have that ability to get tougher when they are attacked, which is very good. And then alternatively, they can just counter when your opponent attacks you and they can do damage back. We're looking at a 9-man warband here, which I think is a pretty good size. We're going to see that from the rest of the spearheads. You don't really see all that many 9-man warbands. You're pretty much capping out about 7 or 8 fighters. So this allows you to swarm the board a little bit. It's got that little bit of maneuverability with your Cavalier Marshal and your Free-Guild Cavaliers. So I think it's an all-round, well-balanced human list if humans are your thing. Seraphon got their big glow-up recently in the April FAQ that just went through. If you want to see my thoughts on Seraphon, how to play them, and look at these kind of fighters, so the Kroxigor specifically, I'm going to put a link up there to my video on that. But what we're going to bring, okay, Kroxigors are very good. I've chosen to go with Kroxigor Warspawn here because, again, we're playing a very simple style of warband. Warspawn, they don't need any dice to go with them. They got 3 attacks, again, strength 5, 3, 6. So we've seen this damage profile kind of before when we were looking at our Stormcast. For the very much the same reasons why those are good, Kroxigor are good as well. We're going to be taking our Saurus Old Blood. We can't take the Carnosaur, unfortunately. So that Old Blood model, here's one little thing for you. Depending on the spearhead choice that you've gone for, you either build the Old Blood on Carnosaur or you build the Skink Priest on Troglodyte. If you built the Skink Priest on Troglodyte, you can build your Old Blood on foot. If you build the Old Blood on Carnosaur, you can build your Skink Priest on foot. So I've got both of them here. You choose one or the other, and then the rest of it, you just fill out the Saurus Warriors. Everything is absolutely fine there. So we've got our Old Blood, 2 Warspawn, we've got our Skink Priest, and then 3 Saurus Warriors with Celestite Club. Overall, this is a very balanced warband. It has a lot of spike damage. All of your Saurus and your Kroxigor have an ability whereby they can just add a whole ton of damage onto one attack. So any one of your fighters is a real threat. But what you've got here is you've got your Warspawn and you've got your Old Blood really as the anchors of your warband. You can put 1 in each deployment group, which means that all of your deployment groups have damage for you. Next up, we have Idoneth Deepkin. I'm not going to lie, they're in a pretty tough spot in Warcry. Their stuff is pretty expensive. They don't do as much damage as I would generally like them to do. You don't get access to the big shark, unfortunately, when you're playing in Warcry. So we have to deal with eels and you have to deal with your Namati Thralls. I've chosen against the wizard that you get in the box. I think that the Morsar Guard Lochlane Prince is better. Its damage profile is fine. It's expensive, but the reason for that is because it's got that movement 10. Toughness 4, it is what it is. and 25 wounds. It's decent enough. We're going to combo him with the other 2 Morsar Guard that you get in the box. I think it's the best option out of all of the different kinds of eels that you can run in terms of building for this box specifically, and then we're just going to put in a bunch of Namarti Thralls. The idea is you want to use your Morsar Guard and your Morsar Prince to go and bully weak things on the battlefield. Namarti Thralls, they're not going to get a whole bunch done by themselves, so combo them with your Guard and with your Prince to try and get that extra damage in there, or have them hang back and then go and get objectives, go get treasure. Next up, we have Fyreslayers, a whole bunch of dwarves. If you want to see more Fyreslayers stuff, go check out Wargames on Toast. I'm going to put a link down in the description to him. He's really the guy that I know that can deal with this for you. It's a very big warband that we've seen already. The thing is about dwarves is that on the one side, they're slow. They only got movement 3. But on the other side, they're pretty tough and they are pretty cheap in terms of what you're getting. I've gone for the Hearthguard Berserker Carl with Broadaxe. This is the hero in your Hearthguard Berserkers. I think his stats are fine. He's going to be winning on 3s most of the time, and the 2-4 damage profile is decidedly okay. You get a Battlesmith in the box. He's going to be in there. And then we're going to take 3 Hearthguard Berserkers with Broadaxe, simply because that's what you get in the box, and they are a little bit better than your Volkite Berserkers. And then we're going to take a bunch of Volkite Berserkers with Weapon and Shield, just to round out the list itself. Now, it is slow, but you do have a lot of guys, so you're able to kind of swarm the battlefield a little bit. You want to get to objectives, and you want to sit there, have your opponent attack into you, and then you can swing on the counter-attack. Generally, you've got a decent amount of wounds and a decent toughness, so you should be able to take a couple of hits before you get down. Onto Sylvaneth, I think this is one of the better spearheads, personally. You do get Kernel Hunters in there, and then you do get Revenants. Revenants can be built as either Tree Revenants or as Spite Revenants, so that's pretty good. I know I put the odds Tree Revenant in there, but that could basically be a Spite Revenant, depending on how you build them for your spearhead for Age of Sigmar. But if you haven't built them already, build a Tree Revenant. And just keep it in there, keep it in the back. No one will notice, but for Warcry, it'll do pretty well for you. I've gone for the Tree Revenant sign with Protector Glade as your hero. It's pretty cheap. The interesting thing about Tree Revenants is that they have the teleport ability, which allows them to move around the battlefield. That's why we've taken the Scion here. The Scion is the leader for the Tree Revenants. He's got a few more wounds, he's a little bit more tougher, he can stick around a little bit better. So if he needs to go and get treasure, generally he'll be able to get away with it, and he'll be able to last a couple more turns than your basic Tree Revenant can. I've also put in 3 Kernel Hunters. You get Kernel Hunters in the box. You just run them with whatever build that you have. If I had to pick, I would pick Hunters with Scythes. I like that 2-inch range. I like the Strength 5. I like the 3-6 damage profile. Kernel Hunters, pretty chunky, pretty scary things, can run into most enemy fighters and generally expect to, if not come out on top, at least knock down a few guys. So they're very good. Then we're going to run 3 Spite Revenants. Spite Revenants have a net ability, and nets in Warcry allow you to stop things from moving. That's something that's extremely important when you're playing your games, to be able to control what your opponent is doing. And then finally, we've got the 1 Tree Revenant to round things out. Of all of these spearheads, this is one of the ones that I think has the most chops competitively. So if you wanted to expand this out, I think the Sylvaneth Spearhead is a really good way to go. Next up, we have the Kharadron Overlords. Unfortunately, you cannot bring the boats, so I'm sorry for you guys. What you do have is your basic privateer company in KO. They are very points efficient, even after the points bumps that they got in April. All of your guys have guns, so if you wanted a kind of slower, more defensive shooty style warband that allows you to move onto objectives, stick onto them with their naturally high amount of wounds, and then be able to shoot things off of other objectives. Not with amazing shots, I'll concede that, but the ability to reach out and touch things is actually pretty important. Then Kharadron Overlords might be for you. What you do get, though, is you get access to the balloons. And what I've chosen here for your leader is the Mizzen Master. I still think the Mizzen Master is pretty good. He used to see a lot of play earlier on in the format. He's very much a glass cannon with that damage profile, but with only 20 wounds and toughness 4, he's not going to stick around forever. But continuing on with the theme, he's very fast moving. He has that movement 10, so we like it. He can run into a thing, he can swing, and generally he can do pretty well. Also, we have the Archanaut Admiral, which is a much slower, but again, equally as damaging piece, which I quite like. I've decided on going with 1 additional Endrin Rigger here. The Endrin Riggers are the guys with balloons. A rapid fire rivet gun and a thematic saw will allow him. He's kind of like a smaller version of your Mizzen Master. He's not going to be taking on big things like your Mizzen Master is, but he'll be able to run into enemy chaff units, cut them down, and really increases the range and the projection that you have for your damage. We're also going to be building out almost the entire unit of Arcanaut Company here. You only get one Skypike in the box, so there's only one Skypike here. I really like Skypikes. They are very good in combat. A little bit more expensive than your basic Arcanaut Company, but it's just a nice thing that allows you to swing back when your opponent comes brawling into your company, when they're just tired of getting shot. And then on top of that, we're going to take a whole bunch of Arcanaut Company privateers, just the build that they come with. Very large warband. It is slow outside of your Mizzen Master and your Engine Rigger, but does have the bonus ability of threat projection, allowing them to sit on objectives and to shoot at stuff. Right, Lumineth Realmlords. It's a boring box. I'm not gonna lie. You're basically looking at Orruk Wardens and Blade Lords. So I've tried to make the best out of this. Orruk Wardens are actually pretty good, so that's why we've got this huge core of 65-point elves with the pikes. So they'll be able to sit just outside of danger range. They do also have an ability that allows them to be a whole lot tougher when they are next to their friends. So that's why we're bringing so many wardens. You build little groups of wardens, and they all roll around together, and then they use their abilities to make those little groups of wardens a lot tougher and a lot more difficult to kill. Then we are going to run our Blade Lords. They're 110 points. They're absolutely fine. I've gone for the Blade Lord Seneschal here as our leader with the dual blades. I think it's a fine damage profile. It's okay. And then on top of that, we're going to be running the High Sentinel, which is the leader of the Orruk Wardens, just as an additional hero and to fill out a little bit more points that we have. Flesheater Courts, one of the newer spearheads that we are looking at. We've got the Vargulf in there, which we can happily use, and the Morbeg Knights. So this is one of those rare spearheads that we can just basically use everything. So I tried to put a little bit of everything in there for a little bit of flavor. We're going to run the Vargulf. We're going to run the Archregent. Two really good damaging pieces. The Vargulf, you can see it here. It's got very good stats when we're comparing it to other heroes in other spearheads. It's also fast. It's got a ton of wounds. Yes, it's expensive, but I really like it. Archregent, we're also going to run for very similar reasons. The Archregent is just an all-around good fighter. I do like the Morbeg Knights, so we're going to be running one of those Morbegs. The Morbegs are pretty interesting in that they have a free disengage ability, so what they can do is they can run into things, they can attack them, on the next turn, free disengage, run into something else, attack. So I think all around, they're just this solid kind of mid-rangey defensive piece that I kind of like. And then we have Crypt Guard, which we're going to fill up to make 6-man. Similarly, we have Nighthaunt. Again, you can use basically everything in the box. I've gone with what I think is probably the best list that you can build out of that box. Nighthaunt recently got a whole bunch of points buffs and a whole bunch of other buffs. Again, I'm going to put the video up here. I think you guys should go check that out if you are interested in playing Nighthaunt. I've been testing a lot of Nighthaunt recently. I'm pretty happy with them. We're going to be taking the Knight of Shrouds on foot. It's now much cheaper. It's just an all-round solid lord that you can bring to anchor your lines. The nice thing about Nighthaunt heroes is that they have the ability to resurrect. So you can use a triple to resurrect any of your fighters that have already been taken down during the game. So if your Spirit Host dies or Chain Rasp dies, your Extoller of Shyish dies, you can bring it back to life. Very good. Talking about the Extoller of Shyish, it's the hero from the Scythe dudes. It's okay. It's got a 2-inch range, which is nice, which allows it to keep outside that melee range of most enemy fighters, allows it to keep alive for a little bit longer. It's a hero as well, so like the Knight of Shrouds, it has access to the Resurrect ability, which is very good. Then we're going to be taking a pair of Spirit Hosts. Lots of attacks, not that high strength, lots of wounds. But one of the recent things that the designers decided to do was give the entire Nighthaunt range the ability to make your crit damage your normal damage when you attack on a triple, which is very, very good for Spirit Hosts because they have 6 attacks. But on top of that, that ability is called Frightful Touch, allows you to get an additional attack if you are a Spirit Host. So you get to attack with 7 attacks, doing a 3/3 damage profile, which is really good. With the defense, with the toughness, with the fly, with everything. I really like Spirit Hosts. I basically always bring 2. And then on top of that, we have Chain Rasps. Chain Rasps got a big points buff from the previous format, so this really allows you to bring a slightly bigger Nighthaunt warband. They all have fly, so they can ignore terrain. They all have toughness 4, so they're fairly tanky, and your heroes have Resurrect. So I like Nighthaunt. I use them. Then we go into Ossiarch Bonereapers. Unfortunately, you cannot take the Gore Gorthizar? Gorthizar? Whatever, the Harvester. You can't take the Harvester, unfortunately. So what does that leave us with? Death Riders and Mortek Guard. I don't rate the hero all that much, but he is better than some of the alternatives. Continuing in the theme with some of the other warbands, I decided to take the Death Rider Hecatos. It pretty much has the best damage that we are thinking about getting out of this Spearhead box. We're going to take the Soul Reaper. He's there. He's a fighter. He can do things. We're going to take the Mortek Hecatos. The Hecatos is the hero from the Mortek Guard. We're going to take another Death Rider with Nandrite Blade. Again, a little bit more kind of damage that you can reach out and touch things. They do all have toughness 5, the Death Riders, which is very good. That's something you're going to see in this warband. A lot of toughness 5. Basically, the entire warband, apart from the Soul Reaper, is going to be sitting in that toughness. What does that mean? It means that they are very difficult to kill because your opponent has to get not only through the toughness 5, which means most of the time they're going to be winning on 5s, but your basic dudes all have 10 wounds, which means that it's very difficult to shift them from the battlefield. If you want a slower moving, kind of defensive, I'm going to build my phalanx, build my wall, and your opponent is going to rush into it style of warband, Ossiarch Bonereapers is going to be for you. On the other side of things, again, slow army, but works in kind of a different way. Soulblight Gravelords. Soulblight Gravelords also have a resurrect ability, but it only works on their minions. So their minions in this case being your skeletons. And boy howdy, do you get skeletons. We're going a lot of skeletons. They are very cheap. You can bog down your opponent. You can use them to block off places where your opponent wants to move, and you use your sheer numbers to control how it is your opponent is going to go. I've decided for the Varboil here because I think it's important also to have a very hard-hitting piece. I think the Varboil is pretty good. This is the champion from that unit. And then we're also going to take that Vampire Lord because I really like a Vampire Lord. That's basically it. And then Skeleton Champion and a lot of spears. Bring them back to life. They have abilities where if they are near your heroes, they get bonus moves, and I think it's pretty awesome. You could take the Knights if you wanted to, but I kind of prefer taking the Vargoyle and going the route of a more swarmy warband for Soulblight Gravelords. I think that's a more effective playstyle for them. Going into Chaos, we have Slaves to Darkness. I can't bring a Chariot, unfortunately. It's kind of sad. But what you can do, you can bring that Chaos Lord on foot. He's actually pretty good. He will hit hard. He'll do work for you. He's just a very good generic foot slugging hero. He'll do work. Then when you do get those Chaos Knights, I've decided to include one of these Chaos Knights in here because, again, movement 10, toughness 6 makes him fairly difficult to kill along with those 22 wounds. And a 4/4/2/4 damage profile is just all round solid. Allows you to run into things, bully enemy chaff, run into enemy deployment zones, tie them up, it'll last a while. So yeah, we're going to bring that Knight. And we're going to go Chaos Warriors. 3 Chaos Warriors with 2 hand weapons, and then 2 Chaos Warriors with hand weapon and shield. You get 10 Chaos Warriors in the box. I do not know how Age of Sigmar 4 is handling Chaos Warriors, if they come in units of 5 or 10. If they come in units of 5, then you are able to kit out your Chaos Warriors in any way that you like. So you can do 5 with hand weapons, 5 with shields. If they come in 10s, you kind of have to choose one or the other. But bear in mind, the reason why those hand weapon shields are in there is because there are not enough points when you hit 1,000 points. But if you're just starting out, it doesn't really matter. You'll only be over by 10 or 20 points or so. Disciples is actually interesting. The problem with this box is that you have both demons and mortals in there. So there are some things that you could take if you're playing demons, some things you could take if you're playing mortals, but you don't really have the basic troops in there to do the overlap. So I've made a mortals list. I've got the Magister on Disc of Tzeentch. He's okay. He's not absolutely fantastic. The range with that 4/4/2/4 damage profile is pretty good. We've got the Pyrocaster. You'll see he's an ally here. If you are new to the game, the ally system allows you to take heroes from other warbands within your Grand Alliance and bring them into your warband, use them as if they were part of your warband. So because it's in the box, we're going to take the Pyrocaster. It's a solid shooting option for Tzeentch. I really like it. It gives you a little bit more threat projection, just a little bit more ability to sit on a point and then burn things. The Pyrocaster is also fairly fast and it's got fly, so it can get places and it can generally be pretty safe as it fires down onto your opponent's warband. You also get a box of Zangors and you get a box of Kharadron Acolytes. Kharadron Acolytes got a big buff from the points. They used to be like 95 points, something crazy, but now they're much cheaper. So we're going to be taking a couple of Carrick Acolytes with paired Cursed Blades. We're going to be taking a pair of Zangor Mutants because you are allowed to make 2 out in the box. And we're going to take a pair of Zangor with Savage Great Blades. They allow you to do a little bit of damage. You've got your Pyrocaster, which can do things from range. Your Mutants are just better than your normal Zangor, so you can bring those. And again, the Magister allows you to go and get things as your fast, mobile, kind of tie down things. I've got 2 lists for you. Again, kind of like the Tzeentch box. You get stuff from demons and you get stuff from mortals, but unlike that box, you get a basic infantry troop box for both. So this is the demon side of things. For that, we're going to take a Plague Ridden, which is the hero from your Plague Bearers. We're going to take a Lord of Afflictions and the Blight Lord. These are coming from Blight Kings. I know it's not written down here, but they will be allies from Blight Kings. They are going to be really giving the punch to this warband. You have a lot of Plague Bearers. Plague Bearers are fine. They're actually pretty good. They're fairly tough, with toughness 4, and they have a lot of wounds to their name. They are a little bit slow, and they don't have an amazing amount of damage. But the nice thing is about Plague Bearers is that you don't need to push any dice into them. They are fully self-sufficient. So where we're going to put our dice, we'll put it into our Lord of Afflictions, pull it into our Blight Lord, and then you'll be relying on them to actually do the damage for you. Look at the Lord of Afflictions, 320 points. That damage profile is awesome, especially at 2-inch range. It has the fly room mark, so it gets to ignore intervening terrain. 42 wounds. It'll stick around. I love the Lord of Afflictions. It's expensive, but it's pretty good. And then going on to the mortal side of things. For the hero, we are going to take the Blight King Blight Lord. This is the hero from your Putrid Blight Kings. For pretty much the same reason you're taking it in the other list, right? He's just a decent all-round fighter. He's got a lot of wounds. That's the thing that this warband specifically will have for you. Your basic guys have a ton of wounds to fall back on, and that's how they're going to be sticking around, despite being a smaller warband. And then on top of that, we're going to take a pair of Pascal Blight Lords. We can't afford the leader. He's way too expensive. But their stat line is basically the same. 4-5-2-5 instead of 3-5 means their basic attacks won't be hitting as hard, like a little bit less, but otherwise they get all the attacks and all the bonuses that the leader does. Only 38 wounds as opposed to 42, but it's almost a 60-point discount on the leader. So that's how we're going to be taking this, guys. They still have the fly room mark, they still got a ton of wounds, they've got decent toughness, so Blight Lords are actually not all that bad in this context. And then finally, we're going to round this out with a trio of Blight Kings with blighted weapons. These will be your basic foot sloggers. Yes, they're slow, but they got a ton of wounds to fall back on, and they have just decent average damage. So they're okay. Your Blight Lords are really going to be the guys who are going to be pulling all the weight and doing the majority of damage, but your basic guys, they can return a punch if they need to. Hedonites of Slaanesh, their Spearhead, right, you only get archers, and normally in Warcry you probably wouldn't be using the archers, but what you do get is you get Slangor, and Slangor are really, really, really good. We're going to be taking the Slakehorn as our leader. You can see its stat line here. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Very good. It has a bonus move ability, whereby if he's within 6 inches, he gets to make that bonus move, and then there's a possibility to attack after that. So that's real good. Really a damage multiplier. All of your fighters get a double, whereby they get plus 3 inches of extra move to their next move action. So they actually have the ability to go out and reach things very quickly if they need to. So we're going to be taking all of our Slangor. Very good. We've got the Shard Speaker in there. Shard Speaker is an interesting hero. It's more of a defensive piece. It has an ability that strips attacks from your opponent if they are within 6 inches. So despite the relative weak nature of your Blissbarb Archers and your Homunculus, and even on your Slangor themselves, yes, they have a decent chunk of wounds to them, but they're not going to last forever with that toughness 4. But if you can strip an attack from your opponent, it really goes a long way to keeping them on the field a little bit longer. So I really like that. So we're going to take the Shard Speaker, pair of Fiendbloods, which we've seen, the Blissbrew Homunculus from the Blissbarb Archer set, and a pair of Blissbarb Archers to round things out. Yes, their shooting is pretty weak, but they're the only real way to get numbers in the warband. Blades of Khorne, however, they get Reavers with Reaver Blades, and they're pretty good. So we are going to take a whole bunch of Blood Reavers. We get Skull Crushers in the box, so we're going to take Skull Crushers in a similar way to the Nurgle list that we saw that we're going to take the Flies. The Skull Crushers, they'll be able to run in there, and they will be able to do their damage. For 210 points with toughness 6, 30 wounds, very, very good. Yes, they have the mounted rune mark, which means they won't be able to climb things, but your opponent will not want to stay on the floor when these guys are just kind of running around doing their thing. One thing I do want to mention, they do have huge bases and they don't have the flying rune mark to back them up, so you have to be careful where you are positioning them, because you don't want to get them stuck on pieces of terrain. And finally, we have the Slaughter Priest with Wrathhammer and Hackblade. I made a mistake, and that fixed it. 185 points. It's going to be your hero. Slaughter Priest is really, really cool. It is a fairly common ally in Chaos Warbands. Why is that? Is because it's one of the very few models in the game that has a pull, which allows you to pick an enemy fighter and drag him towards you out of combat closer to you, so that you can basically hit them with your hammer and your blade. It makes for very good utility. It allows you to kind of mess around with what your opponent is doing, pull opponents off of objectives, pull opponents with treasure closer to you so you can kill them, gain that treasure for yourself. It's a much larger warband, so it allows you to, again, a little bit like Soulblight Gravelords, the kind of things that we were talking about, gum up your opponent, but what it does have going for it is that your Bloodreavers can actually do damage with their high amount of attacks. Next up, we have Skaven. Skaven are going to have two spearheads. There's going to be this old one. I know it says Vanguard, but all of the old Vanguard boxes are getting repackaged into the spearhead boxes. I don't know if this one is still going to be around, but personally, this is the one I would pick over the two. We're going to go over that in just a minute, because you get those 3 Storm Fiends. The Storm Fiends, you can see it here, very, very good. So we're going to take our Greyseer, just as our hero. We're going to take 2 out of the 3 Storm Fiends. I don't know how they're going to work in Age of Sigmar, if you get to mix and match between the weaponry or how that's going to be, but in the box, you get enough to make 1 of each of the weapons. I would go with Storm Fiend with Rattling Cannons, and I would go with Storm Fiend with Warpfire Launchers? Warpfire Projectors. You can see here why we are taking them. Toughness 5, 35 wounds, a big chunky boy, movement 5, so actually fast for once. I like the ones with range profiles. Nets are a thing in game that stop your pieces moving, but what these Storm Fiends with those range attacks actually have going for them is they have the ability that if they are disrupted and they are stuck there from your nets, they can reach out and they can touch things with, to be honest, fairly decent shooting attacks. And then on top of that, if they hit 4-8 damage profile, massive, they're going to be doing damage. So we're going to take 2 of those, and then we're just going to fill up with Clan Rats. They're your rank and file. Yes, they're a bit expensive, but there's nothing we can really do about that. This is the spearhead that's going to come in the box, the Northeast Claw Pack. Unfortunately, there is no rules yet at the time of me writing this for the leader on Doom Rats, whatever we want to call it. I really love that model. I think it's awesome. So we're still going to take our Greyseer. We're going to take our Warlock Engineer, because it comes in the box. And we're going to take a pair of Rat Ogres, similar to the same reasons why we took the Storm Fiend. We're going to take a normal Rat Ogre, and you only get 1 Warpfire Gun in the box, apparently, as far as I know. So we'll take the Rat Ogre with Warpfire Gun. This stats are actually not all that bad. Yeah, it's only 2 shots, but it's strength 5, so it'll wound most things on 3s, and it'll do a 3-6 damage profile, which is very good. The only real difference between the Warpfire Gun and the normal Rat Ogre, the normal Rat Ogre will get an extra attack in there, but again, the ability to reach out and touch things, I think, is very useful. And then, just like before, we're going to fill out with Clan Rats with Rusty Spears. Moving on into Destruction, I have the Orruk Warclans. Now, I know what you're going to tell me. Where is the Ironjaw Spearhead? I don't know. At the time of me writing this, it doesn't exist yet. So we're going with this one, which is Cruel Boys. Okay, people who already play are going to tell me never take the boss on Great Gnashtooth because it is a waste of points, it is too expensive, and it doesn't give you enough bang for your buck. Well, that's what you get in the box, and it's really, really cool, so we're going for it. 330 points, a lot of wounds, decent toughness, toughness 5, good movement 8, which is very nice. 5 attacks is looking at with a 3-5 damage profile, I think is very, very good. Yes, it's overcosted, but it is what it is. It performs very much a similar role to all of those other fast-moving characters that we've been looking at. Note, it does have the mounted rune mark, so it cannot climb things, so you have to be very careful the way you are moving it around the battlefield. You also get Bolt Boys in the box, so we're going to take a Bolt Boy boss. The Bolt Boy boss is pretty cool because it has an ability that allows it to crit a little bit easier, which lets it look at things from all the way across the board and snipe them off perches, snipe off enemy chaff units, snipe off all sorts of things. So I really like the boss, so we're going to take that, and it's just a whole bunch of Gut Rippers. The big strength of Cruel Boys is their Gut Rippers, and why is that? They'll have toughness 4 because they'll have shields, and they have 15 wounds, which for 75 points makes them very, very tanky indeed. Ogres, Ogre's very good. This spearhead specifically is very good. Why? Because you get to make a 7-man warband with ogres in it, and ogres can hit very, very hard. We're not bringing the Tyrant. I think in Spearhead versus Spearhead games, the Tyrant is just a little bit too expensive. My thinking is that if you were going to bring the Tyrant, it would be a 6-man warband. But without the Tyrant, you get to bring the Crusher anyway, and the Crusher's still real good. You can see its stats here. It's going to hit things, and those things are going to die. But you get that extra Ogre in there. Instead of running 3 Ogres, you get to run 4, and you can still run your Noblars as chaff. So we're going to run our Crusher, a pair of basic, bog-standard Ogre Gluttons with clubs. They'll run around, they'll hit things. I've got Leadbolter in there, because Leadbolter are fun. It can shoot things. It's basically as good as an Ogre in combat, so I think it's pretty cool. And a trio of Noblars to build it out. Ogres themselves, they have a free move ability, which is very nice on the Moorpath. That makes them deceptively quick getting across the battlefield to bring that force to bear. They're all really tough, 32 wounds, toughness 4. They'll do the damage, they will do exactly what you want. Can't bring the cannon, but that's just sad times. Going into Gloomspite Gitz. Alright, so we're going to see Thralls for the first time in this list. The reason for that is because you have Rockgut Troggoths in this box. If you are playing this competitively, probably those stabbers with shields would all have nets, but you only get 2 in the box, so we're only going to run 2. We're going to run the Squig Hopper boss. You do get a whole bunch of Squig Hoppers there, and the leader from that is the boss. Again, same reasons that we are bringing all these fast-moving things to be able to have a piece that can reach out and touch things. It's got 5 attacks, which is nice, and 2-4 damage profile, which is okay. It's only got 20 wounds and toughness 4, so very much like the Mizzen Master, it's not going to last a long time. It's the glassiest of glass cannons, so be careful how you use it. But it does have movement 10, and it does have an ability that gets it extra free moves and extra damage, so use it carefully. To anchor our lines, we're going to be bringing 2 Trolls. If you like Trolls, this is for you. Bring a pair of Trolls. They're tough. They do damage. They're kind of like Ogres. They can regenerate as well if they need to get wounds back. So we're going to use those, and a whole bunch of Gits. Just a whole bunch of Goblins to build up your numbers and to give you models that can go and capture objectives and to kind of keep out the way. You don't want them fighting. They are the paperest of paper towels. So just keep them safe, allow your Trolls and your Squig Hopper boss to do the damage. And that's it. That is it from me for today. That was my rundown of all of the available spearheads and the kind of lists that I would build with a little bit of flavor thrown in. I hope that's something that's been useful to you, especially if you are coming over just from Age of Sigmar proper, or even if you want to use spearheads and you've already been playing Warcry for a while, you want to use that to get into a different faction, that's something that you can do. Going on from here, if you are new into the game, welcome, welcome. I will put links down in the description and up there to my kind of follow-on videos, teach you how to play the game, and a little bit about some of the other factions that you can play, so you can check that out. As always, if you like what you see, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comments section below what you thought about this video. If you've got any interesting spearhead builds, that's something that I'd like to hear. And if you found this thing particularly useful, I'd like to hear that also. But anyway, yes, that's it. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching. As always, this has been Off Meta Musings. I've been Itan, and we will see you next time.